is a room on the third floor of a 100-year-old hotel in Chattanooga, Tennessee that the staff will not assign to guests unless the guest specifically requests it by name, not by room number. By name, they call it the Annalisa room, the front. Desk employees are trained to deflect questions about it. If a guest somehow ends up in that room and calls down to the front desk in the middle of the night clerk has a script, vague words about plumbing, about old buildings, about moving the guest to another available room as a courtesy. The guests accept this explanation, pack their things, ride the slow brass elevator down to the lobby, and check into whatever room they have been relocated till they sleep a few hours. They finish their conference or their vacation or their work trip. They go home, and the hotel is real. Room 311 is real. The history attached to it, the woman, the bathtub, the lover who never should have been let in is as real as the original oak door frame that has stood in that bathroom since 1920 and has survived every renovation. Was never a reason to replace what was not broken 3 guests in the span of 8 years checked out of room 311 before sunrise without their luggage, without their explanation, with an expression on their faces that the night clerk described the same way, every time like they had seen something that did not belong to this world. This is the story of one of them. Her name was Sarah Whitfield. She was 32 years old, across 12 states, and had never once been frightened by any or presences that linger after death or any of the comfortable supernatural architecture that human beings construct to make death feel less final. She believed in old plumbing and overactive imaginations. She believed that right up until 1:47 in the morning on a Tuesday in October, when 3 slow, deliberate knocks sounded from inside a locked bathroom she was absolutely certain was empty. After that, she believed in something else entirely. She is still not sure what to call it. Sarah had booked the hotel through her company's travel portal, which aggregated availability across multiple chains and presented options ranked by proximity to the conference center. The historic downtown property had come up as the closest walkable option. A 104-year-old building that had once been a grand hotel during the city's early 20th century boom, gone through a renovation in the 1940s, another in the 1990s, and had emerged from both with enough of its original character intact to attract the kind of traveler who specifically sought out old buildings over modern chain hotels. Sarah was not particularly that kind of traveler. She had her preferences, certain pillow types, a specific ratio of blackout curtain to window coverage, reliable WI but the architecture of a building had never factored into her booking decisions. This hotel was closest to the conference center. That was the whole of her reasoning. She arrived on a Tuesday evening in late October, pulling a single carry-on through the lobby's heavy front door and taking in the space with the practiced eye of someone who had done this enough times to notice the relevant details quickly: elevator location, stairwell location, the desk, the distance from the desk to the elevator, the general cleanliness of the carpet, whether the lobby lighting was the kind that gave you a headache. After 20 minutes, what she actually noticed walking in was the building itself. Marble floors were original. She could tell because of the variation in the stone, the subtle imperfections in the veining that modern reproduction tile does not replicate. The brass elevator gate at the far end of the lobby was the genuine article, worn to a softer gold at the handle where 100 years of hands had touched it. The wallpaper was a deep forest green damask, slightly faded at the seam lines, the kind of wallpaper that had been applied with wheat paste and hand-seaming by someone who did that work for a living in a decade. When that was still a trade, the whole space smelled of cedar and old carpet, and something underneath both of those things that Sarah, standing just inside the entrance with her carry-on handle still extended, found herself unable to categorize for a moment-old air that was the closest she could get to it. The smell of air that had been breathed in and out in the same space for 100 years, that had absorbed the cigarette smoke of the 1940s and the perfume of the 1960s and the particular chemical smell of renovations in the 1990s, and had metabolized all of it into something that was none of those things individually, but was all of them at once, layered, compressed, the olfactory equivalent of a geological cross-section. She shook this off. She was tired from travel and prone to that kind of meandering thought. When she was tired and went to the desk, the clerk was young, mid-20s, with the slightly glazed politeness of someone who had been running on service. INDUSTRY adrenaline since their shift started, and was conserving energy for the hours still ahead. He asked for her name, typed it, and then she noticed this. She noticed it clearly, though she would not understand its significance until much later. He paused. It was a brief pause, less than 2 seconds, but it had a specific quality to it, a decision-making quality, the internal rhythm of someone who has hit a fork in a process and is choosing which branch to take. Then the smile came back smooth and complete. Room 311, he said, sliding the keycard folder across the counter. 3rd floor, far end of the hall. Elevators original to the building, so it runs a bit slowly, but it is completely reliable. Checkouts at 11. Is there anything else I can help you with tonight? No, thanks, she said, and took the folder. She went up to the 3rd floor. The elevator was as advertised, slow, a mechanical grinding ascent that took nearly 3 times as long as a modern elevator would. The gate opened onto a long hallway with burgundy carpet runners down the center and amber wall sconces, spaced at intervals that left the stretch between them slightly dim. The kind of lighting that was probably once considered atmospheric and now just read as inadequate. Room 311 was at the very end of the hall, which was long enough that the elevator alcove behind her had disappeared around a slight curve of the corridor. By the time she reached her door, she swiped the keycard, pushed the heavy oak door open, reached for the light switch. The room was beautiful in the specific way that old things are beautiful when they had been maintained by people who understood what they had. 4-poster bed, dark wood cream duvet, tall windows overlooking the street below, where the amber of the city's nighttime glow was already deepening the October dark into something particular and southern. A writing desk in the corner that appeared to be a genuine antique rather than a reproduction. A wardrobe of dark walnut along the wall, and visible through the bathroom doorway. She could see from the entrance a claw-foot tub, white porcelain on iron feet, deep enough to disappear into the kind of tub that belonged in a different century. She unpacked with the efficiency of long practice, toiletries to the bathroom counter, laptop to the writing desk, tomorrow's conference outfit laid flat on the luggage rack at the foot of the bed. She ordered room service club, sandwich sparkling water, ate it while going through emails, watched something she cannot remember on her laptop, and turned out her light at 10:30. She was asleep by 10:45, and then the water started. It entered her sleep as sound sometimes does, absorbed into the architecture of a dream, given a context that the dreaming mind constructed to accommodate it so that for some unmeasured period of time, the sound of running water was simply part of whatever her subconscious was building. Then the dream shifted or dissolved, and the sound remained, and Sarah surfaced slowly through the layers of sleep with the specific groggy disorientation of someone who has been genuinely tired and is being pulled out of deep sleep by something that does not yet feel urgent. Running water. Bathroom. She had left the tap on. It happened. Sometimes the small failures of attention at the end of a long day. She pushed back the duvet. The room was dark, the curtains fully drawn, the only light a thin line under the bathroom door, where she had left the light on out of the habit she had developed years ago in unfamiliar rooms. She crossed the floor on bare feet, the old wood cool beneath the carpet, pushed the bathroom door open, and reached for the light switch above. The tap was running, cold water full pressure pouring into the white pedestal sink. She went to it and turned the handle. Smooth, clean action. No resistance, no stiffness, suggesting a mechanical fault. The water stopped. She stood there for a moment, looking at the silent tap, the cold tile under her feet, the bathroom around her in its white and porcelain quiet old plumbing. Pressure fluctuations in the pipes. Buildings from this era were full of those small quirks, taps that ran, radiators that knocked floorboards, that shifted when the temperature changed. She had stayed in a hotel in Boston once where the pipes sang every time the water pressure in the building changed. A thin harmonic sound that rose and fell like something alive. Old buildings were like old people, full of sounds that had no particular meaning, just the ongoing conversation of a body that had been running for a long time. She turned off the bathroom light and went back to bed. She was in that dissolving space just before sleep, the edge where conscious thought loses its syntax and begins to drift into images without narrative. When she heard it again, running water, same pressure, same tap. She lay still for a moment, this time listening, counting seconds. 1, 2, 5, 10. The water kept running, not a pressure fluctuation that had nudged the handle open. It was running steadily with the full pressure of a deliberately open tap. She got up again, and this time when she pushed open the bathroom door and turned on the light and looked at the sink, what she saw made her stop completely and stand very still in the doorway. The water was warm. She could see it in the slight curl of steam rising from the basin, thin and barely visible in the bathroom's dry air, evaporating before it rose more than a few inches. She crossed to the sink and held her hand under the water to confirm warm. Not hot, not the temperature you would get if the hot water had been running for several minutes, but warm enough to confirm that it had not just come on cold. It was as though the tap had been running long enough from a water source that was already heated, that the temperature had evened out. To this, she turned it off again more deliberately, this time checking the position of the handle to make sure it was fully closed. She stood in the bathroom for a moment longer, barefoot on the cold tile, looking at the tap and the sink and the still water and the white walls and the clawfoot tub in the corner beyond, serene and heavy and very quiet. The bathroom light hummed faintly overhead. The room smelled of the hotel soap she had used earlier, and something under it, something fainter, something she did not examine too closely, because examining it too closely would have meant naming it and she was not ready to do that. She left the bathroom light on this time. She went back to bed, approximately 20 minutes after she had gotten back. Into bed, she noticed the cold. It did not arrive gradually the way cold usually enters a room, the slow equalization of temperatures. When heating is inadequate or a window seal fails, it arrived all at once, in a specific location, the corner of the room near the bathroom doorway, a distinct pocket of air several degrees colder than the rest of the room hanging. In the space between the foot of the bed and the bathroom door, like something that had been placed there deliberately, Sarah sat up. She looked at the corner. There was nothing there. The ambient light from under the bathroom door reached just far enough to illuminate the lower edge of the door frame, casting a thin yellow rectangle across the floor that stopped a foot short of where she was looking. Above that line, darkness and the corner of two walls and a ceiling and the cold. And nothing else. Nothing else. She was very sure of that. She sat looking at it for a long time to be sure. She was still sitting up, still watching. When the humming started, it came from inside the bathroom, soft enough that she told herself for the first several seconds that she was imagining it, that the mind in a state of heightened alertness will manufacture sounds from ambient noise, that what she was hearing was the hum of pipes or the building's evac system or something else with a rational cause. She strained to listen, to locate it, to identify it. It was a melody, slow, simple, the kind of thing someone hums without realizing. They are doing it a fragment of a song repeated 4 bars, maybe 5, cycling back on itself. The register was neither high nor low, a middle pitch, clear in tone. She could hear it as distinctly as she could hear the city sounds from the street outside. She could not place the melody. This is what she would come back to in the weeks after in the account she eventually wrote and in the conversations she would have with the small number of people she chose to tell she could not place it. She had studied piano for nearly a decade and could recognize melodic structures across several centuries of Western music and a fair portion of folk tradition. This melody fit none of them. The intervals between its notes were not wrong exactly, they followed a harmonic logic she could recognize, but their combination, the sequence, the particular way each phrase resolved felt like a system she had never encountered, as though whoever had written it had been working from a different set of conventions than the ones she knew. It was the kind of melody she wrote that made her think of something very old, something from before recorded music, before radio, before the era of documentation that made it possible to know where a song came from, a song that had been passed from person to person by voice alone in a time and a place that had since disappeared. She was still lying there, rigid, cataloging the melody and failing to identify it when it stopped. The silence that followed had a specific texture, the thick-held silence of a space that has just been making a sound and is now conspicuously not. The kind of silence that does not feel like absence, but like presence. Sarah did not move 1 second. 2, 5, 10, and then from directly behind the bathroom door, close enough that she could hear the specific solidity of a knuckle against heavy wood. Knock, pause. Knock, pause, knock. 3 times evenly spaced, measured the way you knock on a door to get someone's attention. Not panicked, not frantic, not demanding, just 3 clear sounds on solid wood from inside a bathroom. She was absolutely certain she had been in that bathroom twice that night. She had looked at every inch of it, contained no other person. Sarah was off the bed before the third knock had fully sounded. Her body made the decision before her mind had processed it, which was, she later reflected, almost certainly the correct order of operations. She had her phone in her hand. From the knit stand, her shoes on her feet, she did not stop to tie them, her jacket and keycard in her hand. From the chair by the door, she crossed the room in 5 steps and opened the door and went into the hallway and pulled the door shut behind her. She did not run. She has said this very clearly on every account. She did not run. She walked quickly and with purpose back down the long burgundy hallway toward the elevator, watching the door to room 311 recede behind her as she moved away from it. The hallway was empty. The amber sconces were unchanged. Whatever was in that room was in that room. She pushed the elevator button, waited. The hallway behind her was silent. The elevator arrived with its slow mechanical grind, and she stepped inside and pulled the gate shut and pressed the lobby button and descended. Because you already know. He was quiet for a moment. Then he leaned forward on the counter with his elbows in the posture of someone who has made a decision room. 311 has a history, he said. Officially, I am supposed to tell you it was a plumbing issue. Offer you the room, move, and leave it at that. The hotel's position is that the room is a regular room with older infrastructure that occasionally causes maintenance-related disturbances for guests. He paused. That is not what I am going to tell you. What are you going to tell me what happened in that room? He said. Happened in 1927. Her name was Annalisa. She was a guest, staying alone. A man came to that room, whether she expected him or did not. The records do not make that clear, and the records from that era are incomplete in the specific way that records of crimes against women in 1927 tended to be incomplete. Sarah said nothing. She was very still. She was found in the bathtub, he said. The bathroom was otherwise undisturbed. No signs of forced entry on the room door. Whatever happened fast or happened quietly enough that no one in the adjacent rooms heard anything that night. The lobby clock on the wall behind him read 2:04. In the morning, Sarah was aware of the clock in a peripheral way, aware of the hour, aware that she was standing in the lobby of a hotel in the middle of the night. Hearing this story, aware of the room above her, that she was no longer in the tub, was replaced in the 1990s renovation. The clerk continued. The tiles were replaced. The sink, the fixtures, the lighting. The hotel tried to, I do not know if cleanse is the right word, update. They updated everything they could update. The only original structural element in that bathroom that was not replaced was the door frame, the oak door frame. It was assessed as sound and kept as is. Sarah thought about the 3 knocks she had heard from behind that door frame that had been there in 1927. How many guests have reported what you just experienced by name in that specific sequence? More than I can count. He said it calmly, matter-of-factly, the calm of someone who has been the night shift recipient of these conversations enough times that they no longer carry the particular charge they once did. The water, always the water first. Then the cold in the corner by the bathroom door. Then the sound. Most people describe it as humming or singing, though nobody has ever been able to identify the specific song. And then the knocking. He paused. 3 knocks, always 3 knocks. Sarah repeated. She was hearing them again in the exact specific timbre of knuckle on oak, deliberate and measured and close. Most guests do not put it together until afterward, he said. While it is happening, they find reasons old buildings' pressure issues, something they ate too tired dreaming. The reason stopped working around the time of the knocking. Why 3 she asked. It felt like an important question, though she could not have said why. There is a story, he said carefully. I do not know how much of it is true, and how much has accumulated over the years the way stories do. But the story is that before she was found, before anyone came to check on her, someone did knock on that door 3 times. Someone who had heard something, and the door was answered. And whoever answered it said everything was fine, and they left. The lobby was very quiet around them, so she was still Sarah, started, still alive. When the knocking happened, he said, that is the story, or was for a little while longer. Sarah stood with the key card for room 208 in her hand in the lobby of a hotel at 2 in the morning and 4. The first time since she had walked away from room 311, she felt the full weight of the night land on her at once. The exhaustion and the adrenaline and the specific cold, particular horror of understanding exactly what she had been lying. A few feet away from in the dark listening toy, I'm going to 208. She said, good choice, the clerk said gently, sleep as much as you can. There is complimentary breakfast. At 7 she crossed the lobby. She took the elevator to the 2nd floor. She found room 208, which was smaller and less remarkable, and had modern fixtures and a shower, rather than a clawfoot tub and a door. That was not original to any decade that mattered. She lay down on top of the duvet, fully clothed, and stared at the ceiling until sometime around 4 in the morning, when her body finally overrode her mind and pulled her under a. Women from Cincinnati had stayed in that room in 2019 and described the melody she had heard in such specific detail. The slow 4-bar phrase, the particular interval on the 3rd note, the way it cycled back on itself, that Sarah had to put down her phone and sit with that for a long time, because she had described exactly what Sarah had heard in exactly the way Sarah would have described it, and they had never spoken to each other before. A man from Portland had stayed there in 2018 and left before sunrise, and had the same expression on his face when the night clerk saw him. The same expression the clerk had given Sarah when she came down to the lobby, like someone who had seen something that did not belong in this world. A former hotel employee who had worked there for 6 years before leaving for an unrelated reason confirmed. The institutional knowledge about the room, the policy of not assigning it without guest request, the training of new staff to redirect rather than explain, the manager's unofficial acknowledgement that the reports were consistent in a way that could not be attributed to coincidence. Consistent is a careful word. It is the kind of word you use when you are not ready to say the words that would more accurately describe what you mean, when the gap between your experience and the vocabulary you are comfortable using is wider than you know how to bridge. 12 people's accounts were consistent. Their description of the water was consistent. Their description of the cold was consistent. Their description of a melody too old to place was consistent. Their description of 3 deliberate knocks on the inside of a bathroom door was consistent. Sarah closed her laptop eventually. She made herself a cup of tea. She sat at her kitchen table in her apartment in Atlanta and watched the city dark beyond her windows. She is not the kind of person who believes in ghosts. She has said this clearly in the account she posted, and in the follow-up she wrote 6 months later, and in the few interviews she has done since then with people who cover the paranormal. She does not believe in the architecture of the supernatural, the way some people do, the hierarchy of haunting, the rules of unfinished business. The idea that what persists after death is a coherent personality with intentions and desires, and the specific purposeful agenda of making herself known to strangers in the small hours of the morning. What she believes, she says, is what she experienced. She heard what she heard. She felt what she felt. The knocks were real. The cold was real. The melody was real. And she has never identified it. And she has looked. And the fact that 11 other strangers heard the same melody in the same room in the same dark and also could not identify it. She does not have a framework for that. She has sat with it for years now, and she still does not have a framework for. I do not know what Annalisa is, she wrote in the final paragraph of her account, which has been shared enough times that it has become one of the more widely read paranormal testimonies on the platform where she posted it. I do not know if she is a presence or a recording or a pattern or something that the building itself holds. The way stone is supposed to hold the impressions of sound, I do not know if she knows I was there. I do not know if she cared or if the whole thing plays out the same way, regardless of who is lying in that bed listening. But I think about the 3 knocks. I think about what the night clerk told me, that the story is someone knocked on that door 3 times from the outside, and it was answered and the person outside went away. And sometimes I think, what if the 3 knocks are not an echo of the man who killed Hurt? What if they are an echo of the person who walked away? What if that is what she is still doing, still knocking from the inside for the person who heard it and left? I hope she knows that eventually someone always comes downstairs, that someone always turns on the light and comes down to the lobby and says something needs to change. I hope wherever she is, that is enough. The hotel still operates today. Room 311 is still on the booking system. The clawfoot tub is still in the bathroom, a reproduction of what stood there in 1927, installed in the 1990s renovation as part of an effort to preserve the historic character of the space. The oak door frame is original. It has been there for over 100 years. It will probably outlast everyone currently employed by the hotel. If you book the historic property in Chattanooga, and the system auto assigns you to the 3rd floor far end of the hall, the room with the tall windows and the dark wood furniture and the deep white tub, you may want to call the front desk before you go to sleep. You may want to ask for a room on the 2nd floor. You may want to do this before the lights go out. If you hear sometime after midnight the sound of water running in a bathroom, you know is empty. Not wait to see what comes next. The knocking always comes next.